Hello chess lovers, I have a very interesting game for you played at London Chess Classic 2017. Wesley with the white pieces is facing Levon Aronian. Started with e4 and e5 by Aronian. Knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, we see the Spanish game, a6, bishop a4, knight f6, white castles and bishop e7. Aronian is choosing the closed variation of Ruy Lopez, rook e1, b5, bishop b3, black castles. The main move in this position is c3, but we see a4 by Wesley, which is somehow an anti-martial move. By playing this move, white is not allowing black to go for martial attack. b4, d4, d6, d takes e5, d takes e5, but again this is a variation which has been seen many times. Knight d2, bishop c5, a5, bishop e6, bishop takes e6, and by recapturing on e6 with the f pawn, black is opening up this f file, and later we will see how Aronian is using this f file in order to organize his attack. Queen e2, now comes knight g4. Aronian is playing very aggressively. Now the pawn on f2 is hanging. Rook f1, and here Aronian went for an interesting sacrifice. Bishop takes f2 check. According to Aronian, he came up with this sacrifice over the board, but I don't believe, guys. My personal opinion is that he knows all these variations in depth. That's why he's a great player and Morris actually not. Rook takes f2, knight d4, queen c4. Of course, you can't capture on d4 with the knight because your rook is hanging, and this is going to be catastrophic for white. Now there is a danger of a discovered check. If king h1, then rook f8, this is just crushing. White is in trouble. That's why after knight d4, Wesley played queen c4, and only now Aronian is capturing on f2. King takes f2, now comes the queen. Queen h4 check. King g1, queen g4, already the knight is no longer pinned and the queen is hanging. h3, queen g3, queen d3, and here comes a strong sacrifice by Aronian. Rook takes f3. Look at this move. Wesley recaptured on f3, but here comes rook f8, intensifying the pressure on f3, and it turns out that the only best continuation for white is to give up the queen. Otherwise, if a move like knight h2, then queen f2 check is winning. If king h1, then queen e1 check, knight f1, rook takes f1, and you are giving up not only your knight but also the queen, and it's over. Or after rook f8, if a move like bishop f4, then black can capture on f3. If queen takes f3, then queen takes f3 followed by e takes f4. This is a rook endgame where black has an extra pawn. I think that this should be winning for black. That's why instead after rook f8, Wesley captured on d4. Here comes queen e1 check, king h2 and rook f1. The threat is rook h1 checkmate. This queen is controlling the e1 h4 diagonal, and Wesley is just forced to give up his queen. Queen takes f1. Now white has 3 pieces against the queen, but it turns out that white is also going to lose 2 pawns and black has a strong compensation. Now the knight on d4 is hanging. Knight f3, c5, b3, trying to get rid of this pin by developing the bishop. This bishop is going to support the rook and activate it. Queen d1, but while Wesley is activating his pieces, he's losing some pawns. Queen takes c2, bishop takes a5, queen takes b3, and now Aronian is getting these strong passed pawns on b and c files. Rook f1 and h6. So far so good, but this h6 move allows white to equalize the game. The best move was queen c2, not allowing white to play rook f2 and also attacking the pawn on e4. Of course, if a move like knight g5, then black can play h6. If knight takes e6, then queen takes e4. This is just crushing. White is going to lose a piece. Honestly, I can't understand how could Aronian miss this queen c2 move. Don't think that this is a difficult move to find. Maybe he underestimated the power of this move. Anyway, after rook f1 we see h6, controlling the g5 square and not allowing knight g5. Rook f2, c4, rook d2, c3, but it turns out that white has a counterplay and white is managing to give a perpetual check. Rook c7 check, king e8, rook c8 check, king f7, rook c7 check, and after king e8, rook c8 check, the players agreed to a draw. Well, if a move like king d7, then rook c7 check. If king d8, then white can play knight d4 eyeing on e6 square. If queen takes e4, then knight takes e6 check, king e8, knight takes g7 check, and again white is giving a perpetual check. Of course you can't play king g8 because this is even losing. If king h8, then rook g5 check, you have to give up your queen, otherwise if a move like king h7, then knight f8 checkmate. That's why the players repeated the moves and agreed to a draw. This was a very impressive attacking game by Levon Aronian. Unfortunately, we didn't see that queen c2 move and white managed to equalize the game and the game ended in a draw. Your comments and questions please. I hope that you enjoyed this game. Good luck.